Hello, my name is Blair Price, and this is a satirical analysis of Animal Farm by George Orwell. Now, we're going to start off asking the question, what exactly does Animal Farm satirize? Our class definition of satire is an attack on historical particulars by means of manifest fiction. In Animal Farm, the historical particulars that George Orwell decides to satirize is the socialist Soviet movement of the early 1900s. Now, George, this is him in the bottom right down here. And in his brilliant mind, he decides to do this in the form of a farm ran by corrupt, manipulative pigs representing the Soviet heads, and the other animals are just pawns of society. All throughout the book, these animals are struggling to figure out that these pigs are corrupt and they're actually the bad guys in the situation because they just can't think for themselves. They're not educated enough. They can't read. They can't write. So they struggle to figure out the smarter pigs' plan, and it's easy for the pigs to manipulate them. This leads us right into the argument being made by George Orwell that if members of a community aren't well educated about the activities going on at the front of their community, then they can be easily manipulated and taken advantage of. This is pretty much a parallel of what went down in the Soviet Union in the 1800s and 1900s, where corrupt leaders were able to come to power and shape rules and laws however they wanted to just because they were smarter than everybody else. And now Ben is going to go into further detail about the historical particulars of Soviet Russia that Orwell is satirizing in Animal Farm.
So now we're going to talk about the historical particulars that this book is satirizing, which, as said before, is the Russian Revolution and the rise of Stalinism and a totalitarian government in Russia. So going into the 1900s, Russia was a monarchy, but a series of revolutions and a civil war abolished this monarchy in favor of a more socialist form of government. So several factions emerged from this, one of these being the Bolsheviks, which were the party that eventually, under Stalin, became the leading government party. So in the novel, we have some clear representations through a few of the characters to these historical particulars. A few of the most important ones being the Farmer Jones, being representative of the monarchs prior to the Russian Revolution, and the pigs representing the Bolsheviks who became the ruling faction after the revolution. Specifically, we have Napoleon representing Joseph Stalin and Snowball representing Leon Trotsky, who was a other Bolshevik leader but was outspoken against Stalin. We can also see Old Major as a representation of Karl Marx and his ideals. So he gives them kind of the idea for Animal Farm, the idea of a socialist utopia that is not able to be achieved in the story. So, with that background, we can start to take a look at some of the specific events in the book, starting with Snowball's ousting from the farm. So this is after Snowball and Napoleon are debating over the construction of a windmill for the farm. And if we look at this kind of through the lens of those historical particulars, this mirrors Stalin and Trotsky debating Russian industrialization. And upon seemingly losing this debate, Napoleon commands the dogs that he's trained to attack Snowball and drive him out of the farm. And this effectively ends any democracy on Animal Farm, as there's now a threat of violence to anyone who stands against Napoleon. This event also leads to Snowball forever kind of being the scapegoat for every bad thing that happens on the farm. And over the remainder of the story, Napoleon is able to distort the other animals' memories of Snowball to the point where he becomes a villain to them. So this is a great example of the animals being unaware of what's happening in their leadership. Partly the fact that Napoleon was able to train and raise these dogs as enforcers, and no one knew, no one was aware. And then after the fact, that Napoleon was able to tarnish Snowball's reputation and turn him into a scapegoat for everything that goes wrong without any of the animals catching on.
Using the quotes on pages 121, 124, and 125, it is shown that after Boxer grew old and weak, he could no longer keep up with the work on the farm. He dreamt of the retirement pasture that was promised to him in the early days of Animal Farm. The pigs then told the other animals that Boxer was getting picked up to go to a hospital for his hoof injury, when in reality he was being sold to a glue factory. The satirization of this plot revolves around the animals' lack of knowledge and ability to see the pigs' true pattern of behavior. The historical particular is how the working class of Russia, represented by the farm animals, was being killed and lied to by their government, the pigs. The attack from Orwell is how backhanded and manipulative the Russian government was being, and how easily the Russian people accepted said manipulation and propaganda.
The Beast of England, for a while, is kind of like the anthem of the Animal Farm. And you might be thinking to yourself, to us humans, a song doesn't mean much. But to these animals, this song means a lot. Animals, they can't read or write, but they can memorize. They can't memorize very well, but they can memorize. And memorization definitely comes easier in a song. This is a theme that is consistent in animal lives and in human lives. Now, the song was made by Old Major, who was like the original pig, in honor of the recent revolution that they had won against the evil Farmer Jones. So we're going to read it, page 8. Now the day of beasts is coming. Tyrant man shall lose his throne, and the shining fields of England shall be trod by beasts alone. Makes you want to read in a British accent. Pull the ring from out your noses, tear the saddle from your back. Bit and spur must rust forever. Cruel whips no more shall crack. Beasts of England seize the prizes. Wheat and barley, oats and hay, clover, beans, and mango wurzel shall be ours upon that day. It gets you pumped up, doesn't it? It certainly got the animals pumped up. They went on to chant this every night for a while until Napoleon banned it. That's Napoleon in the top right corner. Napoleon knew that this symbol of rebellion, the symbol of the past, the only thing that the animals could clearly remember, just because they sung it every night, it was an obstacle to what Napoleon was trying to do. Banning the Beasts of England for Napoleon was one of the main steps in completely erasing the memories of what Animal Farm was like before he took power. One by one, Napoleon eliminates members and traditions of the Animal Farm, and the animals can't do anything about it because they do not know how.
Alright, so changing gears, I'm going to be talking about the changing of the commandments. The 7 commandments were whatever goes upon 2 legs is an enemy, whatever goes upon 4 legs or has wings is a friend, no animal shall wear clothes, no animal shall sleep in a bed, no animal shall drink alcohol, no animal shall kill any other animal, and finally, all animals are equal. So these were instilled into Animal Farm and were based on Old Major's vision for a future where animals could roam free from, oppressive leadership like Farmer Jones. And these commandments were supposed to be followed by all the animals, but the pigs ended up using manipulation tactics like doublespeak to confuse and bend the truth to the uneducated animals who lacked a form of either reading, writing, a capability of understanding, or even speaking up for themselves, which led to more and more oppression as the story went on. The commandments began to get broken when Squealer manipulates the animals into believing the pigs are more deserving of getting the apples and the milk because they're more intelligent, and this didn't really seem too fair. And this also can be related to how the pigs were the only ones being educated in all forms of reading, writing, capability of understanding, and also communicating. Other instances of manipulation and doublespeak were when all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. Another instance was no animal shall drink alcohol to excess, and also no animal shall sleep in a bed with sheets. So these alterations were not caught on by the animals due to being uneducated, but as the readers, we could all obviously tell that they were manipulated and changed, but the animals couldn't remember and also lacked the ability to stand up for themselves. The most notable and blatant suppressive event was at the end of chapter 8 when the animals catch Squealer actually physically changing the commandments which were painted on the barn. And the commandments get broken throughout the book as the pigs become more and more powerful in their leadership, while the animals are working just as hard, if not more, than they did under Farmer Jones.
Within quote 1, we can see evidence of persuading and taking advantage of the less educated animals by making them think that they are more equal to the pigs. Yet the pigs are more equal, so they have more power. Those in power are hypocrites claiming to want equality, but really want control. In quote 2, it is meant to emphasize the laziness of humans and make them seem less than the animals. However, it's ironic because the pigs are also lazy, making the other animals do all the work that produce while they are simply giving orders and spreading misinformation. Quote 3 supports quote 2 in that the pigs want to be seen as the smart leaders who produce greatness on the farm, but they are simply dictators taking advantage of the other animals while making them think that they are equals. All of these can be said and have been said before about the way that the world is currently run with politics and corporations, etc. This poses the question that is the way we run our government the same way that Orwell figured the Russian government was ran when he wrote this book.
Many members of the farm were either uneducated or undereducated, thus making them more susceptible to propaganda, false information, and the desire to perpetuate what they believed to be true in an attempt to demonstrate their intellect, which was actually ignorance. In Chapter 10, the sheep chant 4 legs good, 2 legs better, which is a deviation from their original chant at the beginning of the book, which was 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. The sheep have changed their chant blindly without realizing that the chant is empowering the pigs and placing them in control of the other animals. They are unaware of how they have been manipulated and how they are perpetuating the new power structure of the farm. In Chapter 10, the final chapter in the book, Orwell chooses to end with the quote, "No question now. What had happened to the faces of the pigs? The creatures outside looked from pig to man, and from man to pig, and from pig to man again. But already it was impossible to say which was which." Like many of the quotes from the book, this quote is meant to be ironic. At the start of the book, the animals on the farm were attempting to seek freedom by organizing a revolution. In the end, through ignorance, propaganda, and a lack of education, the animals ended up looking from man to pig and from pig to man, without being able to tell them apart. In other words, the pigs had become equally as oppressive as the men. By their own doing, the animals placed the pigs in control of the farm, giving them all of the power that they attempted to resist at the start of the novel. The ending of the book begs to ask the question, will man or animal ever really learn?